Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode number 16 here in the Systematic Factory. We are just returning from our holiday break, and we're getting right back into things. So the first thing I wanted to do is I'm going to show you, I made some changes to our tamer setup here. And the first change is I have this reconnected back the way I had it before I made the change, so I can demonstrate it. But there is a problem with this piping, and I noticed it, but I also got a comment about it from a commenter that said that this was hooked up in series, which is going to be a problem, which is true. The steam turbine takes steam and it outputs water. And the way I have it hooked up here, the water from this one goes past the output on this one and then down. The problem is when these are running, it is a continuous output of small amounts of water. Because it's going and flowing constantly, this one will always be blocked because it can't put the water out. So by making a simple change, which is to put another pipe piece here and connect them like this, that means that this less than 5 kilograms of water that comes out of here will come down this way, and then the same will come this way. They'll merge and they'll come down, and it'll continue to flow because it's never going to be more than 5, because these can only take in enough to generate I forget exactly how much it is, but each one of the ports can pull in a certain amount of steam and it outputs a small amount of liquid, but it never ends up being more than 5 kilograms. And so we can constantly have a flow of water out of the steam, and then these two will run. This setup would have been fine and it would have run because I really only need the one steam turbine to keep the aluminum volcano cool. But I have it set up with 2 specifically so that it can cool down faster and so that both of them will run. And effectively having that pipe the way we did made it so this turbine was never going to run and didn't even need to be there. So now it will, and things will be great. The other changes we made are in the way I had our rail set up. So I was having some issues where the metal sitting at the bottom of the volcano would turn to tiles, which would effectively block the volcano from operating, meaning we got no more metal. So what I did is I made this auto sweeper setup here is in the right spot so that it picks up the metal as soon as it comes out, puts it into this loader, which brings it across and drops it onto this tile here. This is where it's going to backpile until it's all processed. This sweeper can only reach this spot and this. It cannot reach this conveyor loader. So it will take any aluminum that's here, load it into this loader, and this loader loads through here and up onto the rail. And so that means that as long as there's aluminum to go on, it will continue to stack on this rail until the rail has 20 kilograms of aluminum in every space on the rail. It will loop. I changed the direction of the loop so that it goes the other way, specifically because I want it to come this way, hit this sensor here, and go through this conveyor shut off if it's cool enough. And I wanted it to fit in this little space here. So the aluminum will then come out here and stockpile right here inside the door. And that means they can come in and grab the cold aluminum. I can close this door off so duplicates cannot come through, meaning that they won't be able to access the hot stuff. And I can open it up if I need them to come in to do any maintenance. So all of that is good. We're going to use this design and we're going to copy it over to the other ones. This here can go, because that was just to get the aluminum, or not aluminum, hydrogen out. When I had put these new sedimentary rock tiles in that I swapped in for the obsidian, some of the hydrogen came through into this room here and I had to pump it out to create a vacuum. So this is just residuals from that. But so this design is going to be copied over to all 4 of our metal volcanoes on this map, and then we will have the ability to process lots of metals for free forever. This is about to erupt, so let's just stay here for a little bit to watch that happen. And we can see it in process. The loop works still just the same way it did before. Check my coolant loop. I want to disconnect this now. This was just to help with the cooling process of getting that room cooled down so that I could do the transition over from sedimentary or obsidian over to sedimentary rock. And the reason I did that was just for aesthetic reasons. I had it obsidian because I liked the way it looked, but then after thinking about it, I realized obsidian is in short supply, and I need it for its heat resistance and its hardness. I don't need it to look pretty. All right, so we got 20 seconds left until this operates. And then we will see it in action. So let's slow it down. I want it to go a little slower so we can see what's all going on. So the aluminum is coming out here. It's dropping into the water. This will be steam once it heats back up, but it's dropping out here, and it's already started its cooling process, but our auto sweeper picks it up and puts it into our loader. The loader brings it over to here where it drops down. That means this, it comes into range of this auto sweeper, which then loads it into this loader, and this loader deposits it right onto the rail. The rail is set up so that it is a constant flow this way. So even if power goes out or anything else, it'll continue to loop, and it won't go out through here unless the sensors tells it to, which means that even if there's no power, it will continue to loop and it won't go through here. It'll just loop again, because I don't want to have any problems where it powers down and then it powers back on and there's a really hot piece of aluminum that drops into this pile and heats up this petroleum. I'd like it to stay nice and cold. So it's the same setup I use on my other filters that are powerless. The only time there's power is when an item is selected and it goes through the conveyor shutoff, and it's the tiniest amount of power ever, so it doesn't matter. So this will continue to load until the belt's full. The belt will continue to cycle until the aluminum is below 40 degrees and gets dropped off. If we get more aluminum in one batch than we can handle on the rail because it's too hot, it will just stockpile right here in this space, which is fine. We can keep losing some heat to the steam for a little while until it gets picked up and sent into our rail. So yeah, that's where it'll work great. This is going to hold us. This will handle any kind of metal volcano, regardless of its stats, because the 2 steam turbines is enough to cover any of them. Our second volcano tamer is now constructed, and this one I wanted to do a little bit together because it is a little more complicated than the last one, because this one we had sealed it in and the volcano is active, so we have a lot of hot cobalt to deal with. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new save, just a temporary one, so that if I have an issue with this I can reload, because this one's going to be a little bit more difficult to figure out than just cracking it open. We did get all the piping done. We have coolant running, power's all set up, and the room has been vacuumed out, so there's no gases to deal with. But what I think I'm going to do is take some temp shift plates and use ice. And I tested this once before when I was just messing around with coming up with the design. So I think that this will be okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one here, and we're going to put 3 more in. That way we can make it so that the water there is very cool and that there's ice around, and that should spill into here and cool it down a little bit and make steam really quickly. But what I really don't want is to have this hot liquid make its way over to here, because if it hits that petroleum is going to flash into sour gas, and then that's going to be a real mess. So we're cleaning this out. This is a vacuum. I also need to put in 2 tiles here so that this stays a vacuum before we start pumping our hydrogen in for the coolant. So we're gonna let him finish building all this stuff, and then I'm gonna break these walls and we'll see if this cobalt can cool down quick enough that it doesn't heat up the petroleum. We got the ice delivered in the temp shift plates, which melted, and we brought the temperature down in this area pretty good. We also have been pumping hydrogen in to this room to finish it up. So what we can do is we're going to disconnect this here so that pipe empties out. We'll take this out and we can deconstruct these 2 pipes, which means that once that's done, we can seal this room up after we get it all cleaned up, get everything swept out of there. So let's take this tile out first. And so what I'm hoping is this cold water, it's going to flash to steam, but it will be enough cold temperature to cool down this molten cobalt enough that it doesn't flow all the way across. We do have a lot of it in there, so I'm concerned about it. If it doesn't cool it down super quick, it'll flow all the way over, but we'll find out. Worst case scenario, we have to reload that save we made so that we can try this again, because I don't want to deal with sour gas. So let's see. Come on, you coming in to deconstruct my tile? You sure are. Okay. And I'm just doing it one at a time because I don't want... Oh, that actually worked out really well. It cooled down that cobalt. So we got a few 100 kilograms of it out before it happened, which means we can handle some of this steam first. Okay, so that's all flowing. Is this one? This one's not running because the steam is too cool. Okay, that's fine. And then we can do that again. We'll dig this tile, and somebody will come along and do that. Let's make a high priority so we can do it here together. And more will flow out, and then it should solidify before it makes it across, which is great. Let's see if that happens. Meanwhile, the steam turbines are going to keep running and cooling down the steam that's in there so that we can keep the room relatively cool. Okay, there we go. Okay, they're intermingling fine there. Temperatures are dropping. The water's heating up. But it's heating up slowly, which is perfect. So this will continue to go. Ooh, we have damage. Is that what that is? How did we get damage on that? That's very strange. It's odd, but that's okay. I think that this is slowly converting. I think I'm going to dig out this tile too and let it all do its thing. We have a little bit of water that made its way over here, but that won't be an issue because we're going to seal this up. We'll block this in to create the vacuum before I dig it out and put the door in place. So that water will get eliminated in that process. So that's fine. Everything else seems to be running just perfectly. Our coolant's still going through and keeping things cool. We're not having any issues with that. The only thing we had is that one damage there, but that's okay as long as it's not a recurring thing. Okay. So now we have a bunch of cobalt being made. I knew we'd get some overheat damage there because the cobalt's going to hit it. Okay, cool. This is down to a small amount. The cobalt is slowly getting converted into a solid. And so once those are gone, all that heat will be gone. We can repair these things. And this should work just fine. You can see the amount of cobalt there is quickly dropping. I don't have my sweepers in to start moving this stuff, so we need to get those in pretty quickly. So we need a steel one here, and we need a steel one here. I was trying to not put them in right away because I was using other things in their place. Probably should have gotten them in place before I moved them. This one I had to wait because there was a wall here, but this one I could have done earlier. But we'll get that put in. That'll start picking up this cobalt. And worst case scenario right now, if this cobalt hits the wrong temperature, turns into a tile, it's not a big deal. We'll just dig it out. This is an active volcano. We still have 78 cycles to go with it. And so we're going to be dealing with more coming out here. But I think this steam should now be able to absorb the heat fast enough we're not going to have any issues. But the goal is to get these auto sweepers in place before that. Do I have the loop all set up and ready to go? I changed it slightly. I have it loading up over here, so I think that that'll still be okay. It's going to load on. It'll go past this sensor first. This is set at 40, and then it'll keep going. On the other one, I had it loading up on the top because the loop went this way. I'm trying this out differently to test it. And if this works, this is going to be my new design. That's the great thing about this game. Every time you rebuild something from a design, you come up with a slight change and you improve it. And so the game is kind of never ending, and I really love that. Okay, so you're building the sweepers, and we'll have to get some repairs in there. But like I said, I think that this is pretty set up. The steam turbines are running full bore, but that's just because so much heat was dumped in at one time. We have to get this steam cooled down so that we can stop having overheat damage on all of our things. But they'll keep running, and since no new heat is being introduced, except rarely when the volcano erupts, this will cool down, and then everything will be fine. Once we get that done and we get everything here done, I'll close this off. Actually, I just have to wait for that sandstone to get swept up. Once that's gone, we'll be all set to seal this room. This vacuum is working good. Okay. While we were vacuuming that room out, I started building this one. This one is for our iron volcano. We're going to do the same thing over here. This one will be much simpler because there is no hot iron sitting waiting for us. So we'll just, once we get all the air out, we crack it open and it'll work. And then we have a volcano down here. And this one I'm just going to wait a little while longer just because all this liquid is piled up above it. And I don't want to have to deal with pushing liquids around. So we're just going to wait until a little bit more liquid gets used up because it's all getting pumped down here. And then we'll put this in. This is a second cobalt volcano. So that is not an issue. We will deal with that just to get extra cobalt after we get the other three finished. But that means those are all done and we can actually start work on what we're going to do today, which is tapping into this volcano so that we can get a space ready for us to build our petroleum boiler. We're still working on our tamers just to get them built on the other sections, but now that we've gotten this one done, this was the one that was going to be difficult, and you've seen the changes we've made. We can do that in the background. I am starting to lay out the space that we're going to use for our petroleum boiler. So it's going to contain two areas. One is going to be, actually three areas. There's going to be one where it's the holding tank for the magma. I'm going to have an area with the actual boiler. And then I'm going to put in a space where I have storage for oil and petroleum. And so we're going to pump up oil from our oil biome down here. Oh no, we had a break somewhere in here. Something happened. Oh, it's because I moved this hydro sensor too high. Things got messed up. We'll fix that. But we're going to pump up oil from down here, and that oil is going to be stored up here as well, just so we have a backlog of oil for our boiler so that it's always running. And we'll set up some alerts to make sure we notice long before we run out, because I don't want the boiler to ever shut down. And then we'll have storage for petroleum before we ship it off down to the power system and over to our plastic construction. And so this is the space I'm marking off to start. So basically what we have here is we're building a big box around. We're going to put in a double liquid lock so that we can vacuum out in the middle to keep it temperature controlled. And then I just built up some ladders so we can get down in here to build all the things. I need to put one more tile here. I had that off originally when I was building this side so that they can get up and down, but they'll be able to do that over here once we have everything else built. So we'll let them build all of that stuff. Once we get this done, we need to lay a few more things out, but the big thing is we need to get this room vacuumed out because we need a space that is free of gases, because the gases are going to mess our whole system up. So we're going to get this built, and then I'm going to set up some vacuum pumps to run and get all the gases out of here as quick as we can. We've got our chamber all built up and sealed. We have liquid locks in place. I only put the blocks above this one because I want to vacuum this whole thing out, and then I'll put the other one in once the whole room is a vacuum. And I have 6 pumps here that are connected and running. This one I still need one more pipe built, but they are pumping gas out of here as fast as they can. So once we get all the gases out of here, I can crack into here to this volcano to let it start accumulating. So what I've done is I started building our chamber for the magma, because that's going to be the first step. The sooner we get that cracked open, the sooner we can get magma building up, and then we'll have some backup magma, which isn't too big of a deal. The system should run very well off of what comes out of the volcano, but it'd be nice to have a lot of it to start. and we want to do that. So the other part I'm building here is the first part of our heat collection system. So there's a couple of different parts to a petroleum boiler. There's lots of different designs, and the first thing you have is a way to get the magma or a heat source. It doesn't have to be a volcano. It doesn't even have to be magma. There's lots of ways to do it. But for us, we want to use this volcano. So we're going to collect the magma. Then we're going to have a system that distributes the magma in small controllable amounts. And we'll have a system that takes the heat from that magma and can handle it so that it can be exchanged into the oil to turn it into petroleum. So there is a system that we're going to build over here to take the heat from the magma. It's going to distribute it into water to turn it into steam, and the steam will hold the heat for us so that we can control it a little better. And then we'll have a system that uses doors and temp shift plates to shift that heat over into the oil as it's coming in to turn it into petroleum. And then we're going to have a counterflow heat exchanger that basically is designed to heat up the oil as it's coming in and cool down the petroleum as it's going out so that things are more manageable. So there's a lot of different moving parts. Typically when I build a petroleum boiler in the past, I've just used the designs that a lot of people use that was first started by Francis John, where he uses some automation and a mining laser or robo miner to break the magma once it cools down to a rock form. What I want to try to do this time is a design that I found on Reddit. I will try to put a link up to the GitHub that I'm using that they have for their designs so you can see the design itself. But basically it's going to use some mechanics with the magma going through some mesh tiles and then cooling down to small debris, and then the debris lands inside the steam chamber because of the mechanics of the game. And that way we don't have to ever have a miner that breaks the rocks, because it never turns into rocks. So instead of solidifying into a tile like it does when it cools down that way, it's going to immediately be cooled down into debris, like a little debris pile, like one of these piles, but it will be of igneous rock. So we're going to use the heat from that to keep steam hot, and we'll control that, and then that steam will get transferred into our oil. So we're going to finish getting all this built, and we're going to pump out all the gases, and then we'll start laying out that first step of our petroleum boiler. I want to get the gases all out and get the magma collecting, and I would like to get the heat exchanger set up first. I dug just a little too deep down here in the oil biome at a couple of spots. Right here, I hit into a patch that's hot, and over here, and it turned some of my oil into sour gas, which I was trying to avoid, but it happened. So all the sour gas was getting collected up here and blocking my filter. So I added in another filter on the bottom side of this system. Get rid of that section of pipe and that section. In order to do it, I had to put in some bridges on either side to make it so the flow continues to go correctly. So if I just put this in there, it's going to mess with the flows. So now this one is dropping off the input from that gas pump. Oops, wrong button. This one is dropping off the gas from that input, and then it goes directly into this one, which forces it to go along this way. And then this one goes over here. It forces it to go the correct flow, even with this gas pump dropping gas in, so that the flow is right across this setup. So anytime sour gas comes across, it gets pumped down here. I built a little storage for sour gas, just like the other ones, was similar to the other ones. And now I can infinitely store the sour gas if I have any. It's going to take a while to clean it all back out of here, but that's okay. It happens. I did patch the spots up so that won't happen. I have some petroleum to deal with down here too, but I'm sure it won't be the last time it happens down here. So I'm just going to keep going through, clearing things up. Most of the oil down here is gone. We have a little bit collecting, but I'm still removing this pump so that we can clean up down here. The sooner I get all this oil out of here, the less likely I am to have any problems like that, because if I don't have any oil, I can't accidentally turn that oil into petroleum and then accidentally turn that into sour gas. So we're mopping things up as best we can in these areas as we go along, and we are digging across to get to the rest of this area and get it all dug out slowly. We've been doing that while we waited for this system to finish up. We're very close. We have just a few milligrams, few hundred milligrams in each spots. And then this will be all vacuumed out. We also have to wait for this volcano. We have one more eruption in this cycle, in half a cycle. It's going to erupt a little bit, give us some magma that we're going to have to deal with. But then we have to wait for another 52 cycles before this is active again. And so our goal is going to be to get this all built before this volcano becomes active again, or at least get it built so that the gases and stuff are in the right place, and we have all the stuff we need to start working, because it's going to take us a while to get to that anyway. So I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it for today. We got a lot done as far as the setup. We have the frame here so that we can vacuum out. Everything's vacuumed. I ran a couple of lines. This is a line for me to connect to put water up for our next step to make the steam chamber. It's going to be as a tank filled with water. But I think we're going to wait and start the building in the next episode, do that all in one episode, because I don't want to be halfway through building and then end an episode and come back to it. So we'll call it here. In between episodes, I'll let these gas pumps continue to run, get this all vacuumed out, and maybe let the volcano get closer to being ready to erupt before we start construction, because we definitely want to get magma in there and stuff when we're ready to start the system up. So we will come back to it in the next one. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'm glad to be back from my little holiday break. We'll get back to doing videos regularly again, and hopefully have some fun. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.